You are listening to an episode of Medium Talk. I'm your host, Cole Nunley, and on this episode, I have a very special guest, Sam Bannon, religious studies and human development double major at, I believe, what college is it?
It's Eckerd College.
Yes, that's in Florida. Cool. We're going to be talking about human development and religion amongst young people our age, which is around, 18 to 25, let's say. So I want to kick it off by asking you, Sam. Well, thank you for coming on the show. But what is your religion? I guess you could say. What are your feelings on religion? Give me like a 1 to 2 sentence summary.
Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So I think that personally, I don't consider myself traditionally religious, what most people consider religious. And part of that is because of my upbringing, and part of it is just because of how my education has formed me. And also the just unbelievable impact that religion has on individuals and society and the globe is really interesting to me. And it's really powerful and often scary. So I think it's just really important for people to learn and talk about it.
Absolutely, and I mean, when we were discussing before we went live, I was curious about whether peers of ours think about their own spirituality and religion, not necessarily because it's important, just because it's part of human nature to question our reality. So my stance is similar to yours. I have written on my website that science has always propelled me. I've always been propelled by a curiosity of science my entire life. And I believe strongly that classical religions are an insult to the true complexity and grandness of the very universe they attempt to explain. And I feel that a full scientific understanding of our universe is the natural duty of humankind. But it doesn't really matter what I believe, but it does matter to talk about what I believe with other people and listen to what they believe. So I love to be productive and always give pieces of advice or bring out new ideas in each episode. So let's get down and dirty. Let's get into the details. So, Sam, what's like some profound thing, or what's like the most interesting that you've learned within your religious studies or human development studies about people our age?
So the very, very first religious studies course I took was called Exploring Religion Through Doubt. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, you like to use curiosity as a tool. And so this class essentially explained to people that doubt, like most people when they hear doubt, they think of like, oh, I doubt that. Basically, I have a hard time believing that. But in terms of religious doubt and personal spiritual doubt, it was really interesting to me because doubt was emphasized as a process, and an element of curiosity is basically necessary in any progress or change, because otherwise people would just have their steadfast, uninformed opinions all the time, and people wouldn't question anything. So there's a certain level of profundity that you find like within doubt as a process was pretty mind-blowing to me. And I think one of the most jarring things was how I had really never considered the impact of doubt, and how like most people that, or at least most people my age who I know, are often, in my opinion, often much too comfortable with what they have in mind in terms of their opinions. And the process of doubt and how powerful and life-changing it can be, I think is heavily underutilized, and that's kind of scary to me after having seen what it can actually do.
So, do you think doubt plays any role in people that don't think about these things? I know something I mentioned earlier was that I don't think a lot of people our age even think about religion and things. And I actually had a discussion with my brother recently, and we kind of joked that everyone kind of figures out what they believe in by the time they're out of middle school. And because I know for me in middle school, I was thinking about religion constantly. That was my biggest thing, was just to like prove that God doesn't exist, you know. And but now to me, I'm just over the argument. But I still would like to have conversations with people that are a little, maybe more adult, more complicated, about like the true implications of our spirituality. Not whether, you
Hmm.
know, God exists or not, but, you know, how does that impact the decisions we make? How does that impact, you know, our happiness and things like that? And do you think people that never really think about religion, or just anything outside their comfort zone, like outside their social circle or their routine of buying Dunkin' Donuts every morning, do you think that actually is a result of like self doubt, or some sort of result of doubt in a way? I mean, I'm not prompting you to give me a yes answer. I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so first of all, like you said, it's most of the time, people our age, especially in this day and age, don't really prioritize their religious curiosity, just because, first of all, it's not really something that's very accessible to most people, just because it's not really necessary,
Mm-hmm.
on the surface at
Right.
least. Um, and believe it or not, upwards of three-quarters of the U.S., they would say that they believe in God in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's interesting that you said in middle school back in the day, you and I'm sure many other people are pretty fixated on either proving that God doesn't exist or that they do exist.
Right.
Um, and what's important to realize, which I had never really realized until I started studying religion, was that most well-read, upper-level religious leaders of greater world religions, but also of smaller religions, aren't really concerned with the entire, like, sort of tangible belief
Right.
of like a legitimate presence of God, because that's not really what matters. And like you said, this has an impact on our everyday lives. So the people who they seem to have these strong convictions that God exists, and they get so fixated on proving to people that God does exist. True religion, whether it's a world religion or a new religious movement or whatever, it's rarely concerned with the actual like proving the existence of a greater deity, because that's not really what's important. So the in terms of self doubt and the exploration of your everyday life and how that can affect you, um, the religious tendencies of most people, whether or not they consider themselves religious, most people worship something in the sense that they hold it to a much higher priority or higher respect than other things, whether it's a hobby or a lifestyle or a sport or whatever. That's, or their parents or an idol or even God. Like, it depends. Um, but in terms of doubt, it's not necessarily self doubt in the sense that you have a sense of unsureness within yourself or uncertainty, but it's more about what more can I find? How much deeper can I go in this exploration? Um, and staying, and people like to think that they're open-minded, um, and a lot of people are open-minded in the sense that they're tolerant, but for most people that I've come across, it's really hard to go about your convictions in a different way other than um, listening to people, absorbing what they have to say, and then just saying what you think, rather than asking more questions or kind of just exploring more about it. So I think of course, especially in people our age, maybe a little younger and a little older, the element of self-doubt in the sense of uncertainty is definitely present, just because in a sense of lack of confidence, or like thinking of self-doubt in the sense that maybe I don't have the capacity to do something, but self-doubt in the sense that you want to be more explorative and adventurous in your endeavors, but also just in the way that you learn and the way that you listen, is a really important thing to think about. And I think that just because of how easy it is to get by without thinking about that sort of thing and staying relatively one-dimensional in your ways of thinking. A lot of people seek safety and they find security in staying relatively one-dimensional in that sense. So I think it can be really, really impactful, but it's also without certain guidance or some level of experience in the sense that you're exposed to the power of doubt and what it can do for you, and just curiosity in every walk of life, without being shown or finding out how impactful that can be. A lot of people get really hung up on just like everyday routine life without doing much more than that.
Yeah, I think you put it, very good. You're very well spoken. I'll definitely have to have you on the show again. I want to wrap
Thanks.
it up. I want to wrap it up with something I kind of gained from this conversation. Is it seems to me like, you said sports and hobbies. It seems like for some people, maybe playing basketball or lifting weights, that is their spirituality. That is their religion. That serves as the tools that someone else might find in, Judaism or something. And I love to use this comparison. Like a lot of people, think that space is like above us, and it's the greater importance, and it's so much more important that us on this tiny little planet, we're so insignificant. But I like to say that it's all within the same universe. So therefore, the black holes and the physics and the asteroids and everything, like you could compare an asteroid to the Dunkin' Donuts cup in some white girl's hand on some college campus, and they're exactly the same thing. They're exactly the same equivalence and importance. And so we need to just, like you said, be open-minded and realize that everybody has a different perspective, and let's just find peace and happiness in our own way, but understand the ways of others. So that's it for our mass today.
Nice.
Thanks for coming on the show, Sam. Much appreciated. If anybody else is watching this and you're passionate about something, want to talk about something, please hit me up. You're very welcome to come on this show anytime. But that's it for me. I'm your host, Cole Nunley. This has been another episode of Medium Talk with the guest, Sam Bannon. Keep creating.